know why you want to get into it. Make small changes, maybe 1 or 2 changes at a time. The first person to tell you that your welds suck, don't listen to them.
At FDF, we spent years mastering our craft, from precise welding and machining to competing at the highest level of drifting. Every week, we'll be giving you our tips, tricks, and all the insider knowledge you need, straight from our shop to your screen. Welcome to Just a Tip Tuesday.
All right, so today, Tip Tuesday, filmed on a Monday. Got a couple welding tips for everybody that's interested. So I've been welding for a few years, probably close to 5 years now, maybe 6 years. Graduated from welding school, 5 years in industry, so take that as you will. So I've got a couple of tips that I've learned as my time in the industry and specifically as my time here as a production MIG welder at FDF. So the biggest thing for anybody that wants to get into welding is know why you want to get into it. If you don't have any motivation, then you're not going to do well. You're not going to succeed. You're never going to get better. So if you have a motivation or a reason to want to be better, then chances are you will. You'll have something to work forward to. So for me, for example, I knew I wanted to work on race cars, whether that be GT3 level cars, drift cars, grassroots, CSCS cars, just like sport compacts. I knew I wanted to do something with cars. I was in university at the time, dropped out, jumped into a welding program at my local college, and then just took off from there. Had absolutely no experience going into it, and then my experience just skyrocketed because I was motivated. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And that could be taken with any trade. It could be taken with film. I know Jack's obviously motivated, and that's why his videos just keep getting better and better. It could be carpentry, plumbing, it could be anything as a mechanic. If you have motivation, you will get better. So as far as setup goes for a machine, I'm not going to tell you how I set my machine up or how you should set your machine up. Obviously everyone's going to weld a little bit different, but if you're not satisfied with your weld, go make small changes, maybe 1 or 2 changes at a time. Don't try to rewrite the book. You'll learn more making small changes and what something like correcting a voltage does, what making a small change in wire feed does, rather than changing both at the same time, or changing something like your torch angle or your contact tip distance or something like that. Just try to change one thing at a time and you'll learn more quicker. And then that being said, also learn your machine. If you're trying to learn from somebody else who has a different machine than you, or learning online or something, let's say they have a Miller, you have an Everlast. That's great, your machines are gonna weld completely different. So just practice with what you have, take your time and learn your machine. Some machines, newer machines, have new technologies, advanced square wave on TIG, hot start MIG, pulse MIG, all that stuff. Play around with it. It's there for a reason. It's there to benefit you as a welder. It's there because these companies have gone into the field and asked their welders what could make their machines better, and they implemented that. It's not just some engineer in a factory saying, I think they would like this. It's because they're listening to who's running the machines, and it's technology to help you. So learn what you have. So for example, on my machine, the 256 Power MIG, I have options like 2-step and 4-step starting. So I've just recently been playing around with 4-step. I've been here for 3 years and I'm just recently started playing around with 4-step. I run hot start on my machine just because I like low wire feed as I'm starting a weld. That's personal preference. Cam doesn't run that. Do we both weld well? Absolutely. The other things like I said, advanced square wave on TIG for aluminum. You have things like post and pre-flow, all that sort of stuff. Your frequency settings. I really like a high frequency on aluminum. A lot of people like your standard 60 Hertz. So that's just, it's all personal preference. Learn your machine and learn what suits you. So my biggest thing, bar none, is tacking, especially with MIG. If you're going to tack something, try to tack so that you can run into it with your weld, not start on a tack. So for example, here I have an SN95 knuckle. So here is the spindle and then the knuckle face. So I know I'm going to run this bead in 3 portions because I can't fully wrap all the way around it. I don't weld with a positioner. It's just the way I like to do it. So I know I'm going to start right here at the very bottom, let's say 0 degrees on the spindle. So I know I'm gonna weld about 120 degrees before I stop, and then another 120 and another 120. So I'm not gonna tack at 0, 120, and 240. I'm gonna tack at 60, 150 or something, and then back down here at like 300 degrees so that I can run over my tack. As the weld heats the part up, I can burn over my tack and keep going, and then I'm also not stop and starting on a tack. So here we have the same SN95 knuckle that was previously welded. So this one I'm just going to do a quick little demo on the spindle. So we have the knuckle face plate here and the spindle itself. So like I was saying, I'll start my weld at 0 degrees, which is basically just completely perpendicular to the knuckle. I'll weld about 120 degrees, 120 degrees, and then finish it at 360. 0 degrees. Gotcha, I'm not gonna put a tack there because that's where I'm gonna start my weld. 60 degrees. Whatever 120 degrees from 60 is. 300. Boom, 3 tacks. So now I can start here, finish my first bead here and run over that one. And then same deal, just keep running over my tacks. And because I weld the back side of the knuckle first, all those tacks and the spindle and everything's getting preheated from the backside weld. So running over it should be a walk in the park. It shouldn't really affect the weld visually at all. So yeah, we'll go ahead and run the beads up. Don't stare at it. How funny would it be if I ran out of wire or gas? Boom, Bob's your uncle. Okay, now I'll run the main bead, starting at 0. Man, I forgot my little Johnny cap. Yeah, that's okay. Anyway, like you can see there, about 0 to 120. I'm about 60 degrees away from the next tack. Same old, and then you can't really tell. I mean, you can kind of tell where the tack was. Like there's a little bulge there in the bead, but like you can tell just because the tack got preheated and all that, that the tack didn't bulge the weld and cause the weld to visually look weird. And now when I go to start my next weld, I'm not starting on a cold tack. So I'll go ahead and run this one up. Okay, so there you can see the other 120. You can see where I started my last one, and then where I'm gonna start my next one and then finish it at 0. So then just one other thing, when I'm going over my tack, I'm not sitting there and pausing and letting the bead like fill up again because there's already material there. I can kind of just run into it and go right over it, and I don't have to pause and let the weld actually fill up to the size that I want. So other than that, yeah, pretty straightforward. Hell yeah, brother. Run over your tacks, don't stop on them. Same deal with something like an open corner weld. Like you have this entire Corvette handbrake mount is all open corners. If I'm tacking on this, I'm tacking at the ends of the welds. So like this long one, for example, something like 8 inches, I'm tacking at the beginning and at the end, and that's it. That way I can burn over it, and then I'll make this tack really small, and sometimes I'll even start in about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch, so I'm not starting right on the tack, backing up, and then I keep going. If you have something that's longer, let's say like a 12-inch weld, and you're not comfortable to get the whole thing in one, and you want to tack in the middle, and you know you can weld 6 inches and then 6 inches and finish it, don't run a tack right in the middle. Run it at like 4 inches and at like 10 inches. And that way you can run over your tacks, preheat them before you get to them, and then you're not starting and stopping on a tack. And then run your tacks, I like mine hot and small. So that way I know that I can still manipulate them. Let's say this wasn't perfectly square. If I had a cold fat tack, if I go to tap this with a hammer to square it up, that tack's gonna crack. 9 times out of 10 it's cracking. If you weld a small tack, it's gonna be easier to bend because there's less resistance. And if it's still hot when you go to move your material around, it's gonna be more malleable and willing to move. So that's just the way I like to do it. I would recommend small hot tacks. Finally, find trustworthy information. The first person to tell you that your welds suck, don't listen to them. Even if they do suck, chances are someone giving you bad criticism isn't trustworthy criticism. There's gonna be, the first person to jump on and tell you you're bad is probably the last person you wanna listen to and take tips from. Find someone that is trustworthy, that's been in the industry for years, someone, and then even then, don't do exactly what they tell you, because they don't weld the same as you. You're not the same person. They don't have the same machine. Someone like a Jody from Welding Tips and Tricks, he's been doing YouTube videos for years and years. The weld.com guys, and what is it, 6061, Pacific Arctic, like those guys have been doing this for absolutely like tons of years. They have tons of experience. They've been in the industry. They've been on YouTube for years. Don't just go find Joe Schmo on Facebook that's talking crap. If he's got a blocked page and he's telling you how to do something and he's not willing to show his experience, then chances are bad news. I guess that's about all I got. Always, nah, that's dumb. Cut that out. Just be willing to practice. Take your time, learn your machine, and weld as much as you can. Same as like seat time and drifting. Practice is practice. Whether it's crap, it's still practice. You're learning what not to do is sometimes just as valuable as how to do something. So just weld as much as you can. I guess that's all I got. Signing off. Mic drop.